Well, the NFL schedule is going to look a little bit different in 2021. Joined by Paul Dottino, I am John Schmeelk. The 16-game season, which Paul has been in place for more than 30 years, is no more. The NFL announcing they're going to a 17-game schedule.
Yeah, well, John, I go back to the days when it was a 14-game schedule, and it's been consistent, as you said, for an awful long time. So this will take a little bit of getting used to, but once people kind of see how it works after a year or so, they'll be okay.
Well, and this is how it's going to work. So how are you going to choose that 17th opponent? Well, each NFL team will be assigned a team that finishes in the same place in their respective divisions from the opposite conference. So this year, the Giants have been assigned the AFC East. The Giants finished in second place. The second place team, Paul, in the AFC East, the Miami Dolphins. So that'll be the Giants' 17th game this year. It'll be a road game at Miami. And I don't think anyone's complaining about a free trip to Miami, huh?
No, especially if it's in November or December. But I think the interesting part for the Giants here is that you're talking about the Giants and the Dolphins, two teams that are on the upswing at the same time. Similar development in terms of their curve.
Well, yeah, Dolphins went 10-6 last year. They were the team with the best record in both conferences that did not make the postseason. Right. So they were right on the cusp. Tua Tagovailoa, obviously there. He's trying to, improve in his second year. So it'll be a very tough opponent. They're well coached. They're very good defense up there in Miami, too. A couple other facets, Paul, of this announcement. 3 preseason games now instead of 4. So still 20 games total. They add one to the regular season, take one away from the preseason.
John, my biggest question here is how do the coaches decide to use their player deployment, specifically with their starters? We always talk about the third preseason game being the one where the starters will get the most snaps. Does this mean they'll now do that in game 2 during the preseason?
Really good question. We'll have to wait to see how they handle it. There is no extra bye week, so the Super Bowl will be backed up 1 week. It'll be February 13th now. Just something to keep in mind moving forward. And another part of the announcement, Paul, starting in 2022, all 32 NFL teams will play at least one international game over an 8-year span. So as they add these games, you might see some more neutral site games so you don't have that unbalanced 8 home and 9 road, right, depending on the year.
Well, the interesting question for me there that obviously is not answered as of yet is when they say international, are we talking the similar sites we've seen in the past like Mexico City and London and other places of that nature, or are we talking about going into totally new areas where the NFL hasn't been, or maybe some of those places were like NFL Europe and the World League had been in years past before those leagues folded?
Germany, which was very popular in that World League and stuff, is one place that has been mentioned. Finally, Paul, let's just take a look at the Giants' schedule. We don't know when the games are going to be played. That's not going to be announced until May. However, we do know who the opponents are going to be home and road. So let's start with the home opponents first, Paul. The Falcons and the Panthers, those are the two teams from the NFC South the Giants will play. They play the AFC West this year. They get the Raiders and the Broncos at home. You have your 3 NFC East teams, obviously. And then they will play the Los Angeles Rams from the NFC West.
John, we always talk about how it's way too early at this point to understand what these teams are going to bring to the table during the course of the season. But I think we can say this. The Giants have what appears to be a much more manageable schedule across the board than they've had in the last couple of years outside of the division.
Only 2 playoff teams will be visiting MetLife Stadium, the Rams and Washington, who the Giants, obviously, they won the NFC East this year. But the road schedule, though, Paul, this is where it gets a little bit tough. They have to go travel to and play the 2 teams that made the Super Bowl, the Bucs and the Chiefs. They also play at Los Angeles against the Chargers, at the Saints. They were one of the better teams last year, but of course, Drew Brees has retired. You have your 3 NFC East opponents, and then you have the Chicago Bears on the road as well. They were a borderline playoff team, so that's a really tough road schedule.
Much tougher than the home part of the schedule, no question about that, and we've seen the Giants go through some very difficult waters on the road in the last few years anyway.
And the team looks to improve. You got to be good teams in order to make the playoffs in this league, so the Giants will be tested this year in 2021. For Paul Dottino, I'm John Schmeelk. That's a look at the new scheduling format in the National Football League.